This video has no images to watch, only a voice and a story. A story about something familiar, something small, something we rarely stop to question. In the dark, details emerge differently. Objects become symbols, habits become choices, and history feels less distant. Tonight, we entered the dark room. At the beginning of 2000s, almost half of the world carried the same object in their pocket. It didn't glow with the light of 1,000 notifications. It didn't scroll. It didn't vibrate with anxiety every few seconds. It didn't demand your attention every 4 seconds. It rang. And when it did, you knew exactly what it was. The melody was older than the technology. In 1902, a Spanish guitarist named Francisco Tariega composed Grand Vals. A century later, a fragment of that composition became the Nokia Tune, a sequence of notes heard 1.8 billion times a day. Across continents, across languages, across time zones. It was more than a ringtone. It was the sound of arrival. By 27, Nokia controlled nearly 50% of the global mobile phone market. Every second phone on Earth carried its name. The company represented 4% of Finland's entire GDP and 70% of the Helsinki Stock Exchange's value. It did not feel like a company. It felt like infrastructure, like gravity, permanent. Just a few years later, that sound was gone. On July 18, 2012, the stock collapsed to €1.33, 98% of its value erased. The sound we all knew disappeared. This is not just the story of a phone, it's the story of time and what happens when times move on, even if we don't. It's the story of a 150 years old organism that has died dozens of times and each time changed its skin. Long before screens, before signals, before the word technology meant glass and code, Nokia was just a place. A river in Finland, cold water cutting through dark forests, silence broken only by industry. In 1865, a mining engineer named Frederick Idestam built a small pulp mill along the Tameroskovsky Rapids. 3 years later, he moved to the Nokianvirta River, the place that gave the company its name. Paper came first, but it was never the limit. In 1898, Finnish rubber works began producing galoshes and tires. In 1912, Finnish cable works began spinning telegraph wires, the nervous system of a fractured Europe. Then rubber, then cables, then electricity. Nokia did not grow because it predicted the future. It survived because it accepted change without attachment. Whenever the world shifted, Nokia shifted with it. For 100 years, Nokia was not a technology company. It was an industrial survivor. In 1967, paper, rubber and cables merged to form the Nokia Corporation. They manufactured toilet paper, car tires, rubber boots, televisions, almost anything that could be produced in a factory. No bold mission statements, no visionary slogans, just adaptation. It was as if the company feared standing still, always expanding, never defining itself, like a student taking every subject at once, mastering none, yet learning everything. And inside the Cableworks division, quietly, a small group of engineers experimented with the radio signals, and military encryption. They were not building phones, they were planting seeds. In the 1960s, Nokia created one of the first electronics divisions in Scandinavia. What made it special wasn't funding, it was trust. Engineers were encouraged to experiment, to fail, to explore ideas without immediate commercial pressure. During the Cold War, Finland lived in a delicate balance between East and West, between influence and independence. Nokia learned how to operate in uncertainty, but in the 1970s it was developing encrypted communication systems for the Finnish military. Technology designed for survival was quietly preparing itself for everyday life. In 1982, Nokia released the Mobira Senador. It weighed nearly 10 kilograms. You didn't carry it, you installed it. Heavy, expensive, exclusive. But technology shrinks. That is its nature. In 1987, Nokia released the Mobira Cityman. It weighed almost 800 grams. Still a brick, still expensive, still awkward. But it worked. That same year, Mikhail Gorbachev was photographed in Helsinki using one to call Moscow. The phone earned a nickname, the Gorba. For the first time, communication wasn't tied to a wall. It followed people, a smart shift that would soon change everything. In 1992, Nokia launched the Nokia 1011, its first mass-market GSM phone. The same year, Jorma Ollila became CEO. The board considered selling the struggling mobile division. Ollila did the opposite. He saw the shift from analog to digital networks. He made a terrifying bet. Sell the paper mills, sell the rubber factories, sell the cable business. Keep only the phones. A gamble on something invisible, on signals in the air. From that moment on, Nokia focused almost entirely on mobile communication. Not spectacle, not disruption, reliability. Its phones didn't promise to change your life. They promised to be there when needed, and people trusted them. That trust spread quietly from business people to families, from cities to small towns, and it worked. In 1998, Nokia had overtaken Motorola to become the best-selling mobile phone brand in the world. They did not just sell devices, they sold reliability. Between 1996 and 2001, Nokia's revenue grew from 6.5 billion to over 31 billion euros. In 2000, they released the Nokia 3310. It sold 126 million units. It introduced a generation to a pixelated serpent named Snake. It survived drops, cold winters, backpacks, pockets, accidents that would have ended lesser machines. It wasn't sleek, it wasn't fragile, it was loyal. By 2005, Nokia had sold its billionth phone. By 2007, its market share exceeded that of its three closest rivals combined. They were not competing, they were reigning. At that height, the world feels stable, permanent, but kings often miss the revolution brewing in the street. January 9, 2007, San Francisco. Steve Jobs steps onto a stage and introduces a phone without buttons, a sheet of glass, a touchscreen, the iPhone. To the world, it looked like magic. To Nokia, it looked like a toy. Engineers dismantled it within days. It failed drop test. The battery life was inferior. It was expensive to manufacture. It did not meet Nokia standards. Nokia understood hardware, durability, batteries, physical design. Software felt secondary. That assumption would quietly undo everything. Nokia believed a phone was hardware. Apple believed a phone was software. In 2007, Nokia had nearly 50% of the market. Apple had less than 3%. One felt secure, the other felt hungry. Phones stopped being objects, they became platforms. Apple had iOS, Google built Android. Nokia had Symbian, a system designed for a slower era. In 2008, Google entered the war with Android, and now Nokia wasn't fighting a company, it was fighting an ecosystem. Manufacturers across the world adopted Google's software. In 2009, Nokia released the N97, marketed as the iPhone killer. Touchscreen, slide-out keyboard, ambition, but the software was aging. Symbian struggled with modern apps. It crashed, it resisted change. An executive later called it a tremendous disappointment. In 2010, Nokia released the N8, technologically impressive, commercially disappointing. The market was moving faster than Nokia internal rhythm, and inside the company, something else was changing. In September 2010, Steven Elop became Nokia's first non-Finnish CEO. 5 months later, he sent a memo. We are standing on a burning platform. Stay and burn or jump into freezing water. The jump meant abandoning Symbian and committing entirely to Windows Phone. A clean break, a decisive moment, and a dangerous one. The memo leaked. Overnight, the world understood. Nokia had declared its own products obsolete. Sales collapsed instantly. Windows Phone wasn't ready. Its app ecosystem was small. Time was running out. Later internal reports revealed something deeper. Inside Nokia, people were afraid. Afraid to speak openly. Afraid to challenge leadership. Afraid to admit mistakes. Fear doesn't shout, it whispers. And when fear spreads, learning slows to a stop. The fire was no longer metaphorical. Between 2011 and 2013, Nokia's market share collapsed from over 30% to under 3%, from controlling half the world's phones to becoming almost invisible. In September 2013, Microsoft acquired Nokia's phone divisions for €5.44 billion, approximately $7.2 billion. To the public, it felt like a funeral. To the board, it was surgery. Chairman Risto Siilasmaa saw the truth. The phone war was lost. Sometimes survival requires abandoning the symbol. Nokia sold the business that defined it. 2 years later, Microsoft wrote off $7.6 billion and laid off 7,800 employees. Microsoft had purchased a sinking ship. Nokia had taken a lifeboat. The sound disappeared. But Nokia did not vanish. It molded. Flush with Microsoft cash, Nokia acquired Alcatel-Lucent for €15.6 billion. With it came Bell Labs, the legendary research center that had invented the transistor, the laser, and the solar cell. Nokia stopped building what you hold. It started building what holds everything else. 5G towers, optical cables, network infrastructures. When Huawei was banned from Western networks in 2019 due to security concerns, Nokia stepped into the vacuum, securing contracts with BT, AT&T, and Verizon. Today, Nokia generates over 20 billion euros in annual revenue, invisible but essential. By 2025, the axis shifted again towards artificial intelligence, but AI has a problem: latency. Self-driving cars cannot wait for a distant cloud server. Industrial robots cannot tolerate delay. Decision must happen in milliseconds. Intelligence must move to the edge, into the cell tower. NVIDIA, the king of AI chips, needed a partner. Ericsson was aligned with Intel. Huawei was restricted. That left Nokia. On October 28, 2025, in Washington, D.C., NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang announced a $1 billion investment in Nokia. They unveiled AI RAN, radio networks embedded with NVIDIA chips. Towers that don't just transmit data, they process it. The vision: put in an AI data center into everyone's pocket. The stock, once frozen at €1.33, rose 22% in a single day. The signal returned. Nokia began as a paper mill in the Russian Empire. It became rubber. It became cables. It became the world's phone company. It lost almost everything. It became the infrastructure beneath everything. Now, it is becoming the nervous system of artificial intelligence. We often think failure is an ending, but sometimes it is more thing. Sometimes it is winter. Sometimes it is the silence before a new frequency. For many people, a Nokia phone was the first piece of technology they never held. It didn't ask for attention. It didn't try to impress. It just worked. And maybe that's why we still remember its sound. Not because it was loud, but because it was always there. The Nokia 3310 was famous for being indestructible. It turns out the company was too. Some stories don't end, they simply go quiet. The object remains, the habit survives, the meaning changes. If you listen closely, you can still hear it. This was the Darkroom Diaries. Thank you for staying in the dark with me.